I know in her mind, she probably was just wondering, like, what did I do? Like, what are you doing this to me for? Like, I love you. Like, why are you hurting me?
My granddaughter. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and to have to go through that type of anguish and pain.
A tactical team eventually arrested Flanagan after a standoff, and prosecutors say charges may be upgraded to capital murder once his daughter's autopsy is complete.
This is the story of Zevaya Flanagan, a 2-year-old girl whose life was taken by the one person who was never supposed to hurt her. This is the story of a mother's worst nightmare coming true, of warnings that were ignored, of a desperate chase that ended in tragedy. What went wrong? What could have been done? And how does a father go from holding his newborn daughter in his arms to taking her life in the most unimaginable way? Stay with me as we uncover the full story. And tell me in the comments, what do you think could have been done to stop this from happening? To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we have to go back to the beginning of Deontray Flanagan's life. Who was he before this? What kind of childhood did he have? And were there signs long before this moment that something was wrong? Deontray Flanagan was born and raised in Texas. His early years, like so many others, were shaped by the environment around him: family, friends, school. The moments that mold a person before they fully understand the weight of the world. As a child, he was just another face in the crowd, playing, learning, growing. But as he got older, something changed. Those who knew him saw a boy who sometimes struggled with his temper, a young man who didn't always handle emotions the way others did. Some might have brushed it off. Boys will be boys, right? People get angry. People have bad days. But in Deontray's case, the anger didn't always fade away. It stayed. It simmered. And over time, it started to show itself in ways that couldn't be ignored. By the time he reached adulthood, trouble was never too far behind. His name began to appear in police records attached to crimes that hinted at a pattern of losing control. In 2017, Deontray Flanagan was arrested for evading law enforcement. The details of that incident aren't widely known, but what is clear is that when faced with authority, his instinct was to run, to escape, to resist instead of comply. 1 year later, in 2018, things escalated. This time, it wasn't just about running from the police, it was about violence. Flanagan was arrested and charged with assault causing bodily injury to a family member. Someone close to him, someone he was supposed to care about, became the target of his anger. The exact circumstances of the attack remain unclear, but the charge was serious. He spent 30 days behind bars, a short sentence for something that could have been a warning sign of what was to come. Did those 30 days change him? Did they teach him anything? Or did they only make the anger stronger? Before we go deeper into the story, take a moment to join our true crime community. Hit that subscribe button to follow more compelling investigations and cases that make us question every case we thought we knew. If you believe this story should be heard, like and share this video for more awareness. After his release, life went on. He met people, he formed relationships, and at some point he crossed paths with Kirsten Watson. Maybe there were good days. Maybe in the beginning things seemed normal, but that wouldn't last. There were arguments, fights, threats, and when their daughter Zevaya was born, the stakes became even higher. The tension didn't go away. It grew. Kirsten knew. She saw the warning signs. She heard the words he spoke, the threats he made. She told people. She reached out. She tried to get help, but nothing changed. Deontray Flanagan was a man who had already proven that he could turn violent. And on March 20th, 2023, that violence reached a level that no one could ignore. What makes a person snap? What leads someone to cross the line from anger to something far worse? And most importantly, could this have been stopped? Tell me in the comments. Do you think people ignored the warning signs? Could more have been done to prevent this? March 20th, 2023 was a Monday. A day that should have been like any other. Parents waking up, getting their kids ready, heading to work, making plans for the week ahead. For Kirsten Watson, it was another shift at Walmart, another morning of routine. She had no idea that within hours her entire world would be shattered. For Zevaya Flanagan, a 2-year-old with her whole life ahead of her, the day started the way so many others had. She woke up, got dressed, and was taken to daycare, a place that had always been safe for her. A place where she was surrounded by other children, by teachers who cared for her, by the comforting rhythm of playtime and learning. But on this particular morning, something unexpected happened. Deontray Flanagan arrived at the daycare unannounced. No prior call, no scheduled visit, just a father showing up to take his daughter. To an outsider, nothing about that might have seemed strange. Parents pick up their kids early all the time. Maybe there was an appointment, maybe it was a special day. But for those who knew the situation between him and Kirsten, this was far from normal. He walked in, asked for Zevaya, and left with her. No one stopped him. No one questioned it. After all, he was her father. Who would think twice? And just like that, he had her. No one at the daycare could have known that this would be the last time Zevaya would ever step foot in that place. The last time she would be in the presence of people who could have protected her. The last time she would be safe. Kirsten Watson had no idea what was coming. She was at work, doing her job, surrounded by coworkers, customers, and the endless beeping of checkout lanes. Then out of nowhere he walked in. Deontray Flanagan stormed into Walmart with a purpose. He wasn't there to shop. He wasn't there to talk. He was there for one thing: her phone. There was no discussion, no calm conversation, no reasoning. He demanded it, she resisted. And that's when he snapped. Right there in the middle of a Walmart, in front of coworkers, in front of strangers, in front of security cameras, he attacked her. His fists met her body. He struck her multiple times, each blow fueled by frustration, by rage, by something boiling over inside of him. People saw it. They heard it. But before anyone could do anything, it was over. She gave him the phone, and then just as quickly as he came, he was gone, fleeing with Zevaya in his car, speeding away from the scene. The mother he had just assaulted was left standing there, battered, breathless, and desperate. Because she knew. She knew what he was capable of. She knew the threats he had made in the past, and now he was gone with their daughter in his hands. She tried to call out for help. But who would listen? Who would act fast enough? A chase had already begun, but for Kirsten, time was moving too slowly. And the worst was yet to come. What do you think should have happened at that moment? Should someone at the daycare have questioned why he was picking up Zevaya? Should the authorities have taken previous warnings more seriously? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The moment Deontray Flanagan sped away from that Walmart parking lot with 2-year-old Zevaya in the car, everything changed. For law enforcement, it became a chase. For Kirsten Watson, it became a nightmare. As soon as authorities were alerted, patrol units were dispatched. The call went out over police radios. An urgent pursuit was unfolding. Officers raced to locate the vehicle, weaving through traffic sirens, blaring lights flashing. Flanagan was already miles ahead, weaving recklessly through the streets of Harris County, Texas. He wasn't just running. He was driving like a man with nothing to lose. Witnesses on the road that day would later describe a vehicle flying past them, barely avoiding collisions, darting between lanes, with no concern for the lives around him. He ran red lights. He ignored stop signs. He cut off other drivers, forcing them to swerve to avoid disaster. At one point, he drove against oncoming traffic, a dangerous move that sent cars screeching and honking in panic. Some drivers barely had time to react. A head-on collision seemed inevitable, but somehow he kept going. At least once he struck another vehicle. But he didn't stop. He never hesitated. Police tried to block him in, but he found gaps. He maneuvered through spaces that barely fit his car, pushing forward at all costs. Every officer in the pursuit knew this wasn't just a chase, it was a race against time, because they also knew what was happening inside that vehicle. At some point during the pursuit, Deontray Flanagan made a call. Not to the police, not to plead for his own escape. He called Kirsten Watson. But it wasn't just a call, it was FaceTime. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly she was face to face with him. She could see the inside of the car, the rapid movement outside the windows as he sped down the road, and she could see Zevaya, her daughter, her baby. She was in the back seat, trapped, helpless, completely at his mercy. Kirsten begged, she pleaded, she told him to stop, she told him to pull over. But Deontray Flanagan wasn't listening. He wasn't reasoning. He was demanding one thing, her phone password. She didn't give it to him. And that's when the unthinkable happened. Right there on the screen, while the car was still in motion, while police were still trailing him, he turned his fury on Zevaya. Kirsten watched in horror as his hand struck their daughter. She screamed into the phone. She begged him to stop. Her voice cracked, filled with desperation. She tried everything, offering him anything, saying anything, just to make him stop. But he didn't. He kept hitting, kept choking. Zevaya's small body twisted in the seat, struggling, gasping, confused, afraid. And Kirsten? She could do nothing, nothing except watch. She wasn't alone on that call. Her father, Zevaya's grandfather, was there too. He witnessed it all. A grown man forced to stand by as his granddaughter was being hurt, powerless to intervene. Every second felt like an eternity. But Deontray didn't stop. At one point, the call disconnected. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then another call. This time to his stepfather. And the words he spoke next were ones no one would ever forget. "She's gone." Everything went cold. For Kirsten Watson, those words shattered everything. For the officers still trailing the car, it turned the pursuit into something even more urgent. No one knew what state Zevaya was in. No one knew if she could still be saved. The chase continued. It had already lasted 45 minutes, an entire lifetime for those watching in terror. But soon, it would come to an end, and the truth of what had happened inside that car would finally be revealed. What do you think should have happened? Could the police have stopped him sooner? Should someone have stepped in before that day? Tell me in the comments. For nearly an hour, Deontray Flanagan had led police through streets, highways, intersections, pushing his vehicle to the limit, showing no care for the world around him. Every officer on his trail knew what was at stake. They knew a child was in that car. They knew they had to stop him. But how do you stop a man who refuses to stop himself? Then finally something changed. Near St. Dunstan's Episcopal Church in northwest Harris County, Flanagan's car slowed down. Officers took position. Weapons were drawn. They surrounded the vehicle. For the first time since this all began, the car was still. The engine hummed in the tense silence. The officers remained on edge because they didn't know what was happening inside. Was Zevaya still breathing? Was she still alive? No one had answers. What they did know was this: Flanagan wasn't coming out willingly. More officers arrived. The situation escalated. A SWAT team was called in. Tactical units moved into position. Snipers set their sights. Law enforcement wasn't taking chances. They didn't know if Flanagan was armed. They didn't know what his next move would be. All they knew was that he had just led them on a dangerous, high-speed chase, committed multiple assaults, and was now sitting inside a car with a motionless 2-year-old. For 20 minutes they ordered him to surrender. He didn't respond. He sat there, the weight of what he had done pressing down on the scene like a suffocating cloud. Negotiators spoke through loudspeakers, trying to coax him out. No response. At any moment things could turn deadly. Would he try to run again? Would he reach for something in the car? Would officers be forced to fire? Then, finally, movement. Slowly Flanagan opened the door. Officers rushed in. He was pulled from the vehicle, wrestled to the ground. His face met the pavement. His arms were forced behind his back. Handcuffs clicked shut. He was taken into custody. But no one felt relief, because Zevaya was still in the car. Zevaya is rushed to the hospital. Officers sprinted to the vehicle. They pulled the small, fragile body from the seat. She wasn't moving. They called for medics. EMTs arrived, rushing her into an ambulance. The sirens screamed as they sped toward the hospital. Every second mattered. Every officer, every paramedic, every doctor at that moment was hoping, praying that she could be saved. But deep down, some of them already knew. The damage had been done. She was taken to a nearby hospital. Medical teams fought to bring her back. But it was too late. Zevaya Flanagan was pronounced dead. Before we continue, drop a comment below. Let us know where you are tuning in from and the time. Do us a favor, like this video, share, and subscribe to the channel to encourage us. A life that had just begun, a little girl who had barely experienced the world, was gone. And the man responsible? He was in police custody, about to face the full weight of the law. Kirsten Watson wasn't there at the hospital when the news was delivered. She didn't get to hold her daughter one last time. Instead, she was left with an unbearable truth. She had been forced to watch the last moments of her child's life through a phone screen. She had begged for it to stop, and no one could stop it. Now I want to hear from you. Did law enforcement do enough? Should the chase have ended sooner? Could they have prevented this from happening altogether? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. For the world, the case was closed. The man responsible for Zevaya Flanagan's death was locked away, sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars. But for her family, for her mother, for those who had loved her, the nightmare didn't end with the verdict. Because justice does not bring back the dead. It does not erase the pain. It does not fill the space left behind by a child who should still be here. And no sentence, no matter how severe, could undo what had already been done. Kirsten Watson had fought to save her daughter long before that tragic day. She had gone to the police, she had reported the threats, she had shown the messages where Deontray Flanagan warned that he would hurt Zevaya. She had begged for action, and no one listened. Now standing before news cameras, her voice shaking, her eyes hollow, she spoke words that cut through the silence. I told them over and over that something was going to happen. I showed them everything. The messages, the threats, and what did they do? Nothing. Her grief was overwhelming. Her frustration was undeniable, because she had done everything right. She had tried to protect her child, and still, the system failed her. She was left with a loss that could never be undone. Zevaya's grandfather, Curtis Watson, had always been a strong man, a protector, a man who had spent his life trying to shield his family from harm. But this was a pain he could not fight. This was a wound that would never heal. As he stood in front of reporters holding a picture of his granddaughter, her bright eyes, her innocent smile, he spoke through his sorrow. My granddaughter should be here. She should be running around, laughing, playing, living her life, and instead, we're burying her. Then his voice turned sharp. They had warnings. We begged them to step in. And now they want to act like they care? Now that she's gone? His words hit hard, because he wasn't just speaking for himself. He was speaking for every family that has lost a child because no one took action in time. For every mother who tried to warn authorities only to be dismissed. For every victim who didn't get a second chance. Days after the sentencing, the community gathered. They held candles, they placed stuffed animals, flowers, and handwritten notes outside Zevaya's daycare. People, strangers who had never even met her, came to mourn, to show that she would not be forgotten. A large photo of Zevaya stood in the center of the memorial, her small, radiant smile frozen in time. The case moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Witness statements, 911 calls, police body cam footage, and the horrifying Facetime video all pointed to one undeniable conclusion. Deontray Flanagan had taken the life of his own daughter. The charges were filed without hesitation. In the days that followed his arrest, Flanagan showed no remorse. In fact, his behavior in jail was just as disturbing as the crimes he had committed. He was uncooperative, aggressive. Even behind bars, he still acted like he was in control. When Flanagan appeared in court for his initial bond hearing, the prosecution wasted no time painting the picture of a dangerous, unpredictable man. The request? A $1 million bond. But something strange happened. Despite the severity of his crime, despite the overwhelming evidence, his defense team argued for a lower amount. And for a moment, it seemed possible. The courtroom fell into a tense silence. Was the system really about to allow this man a chance at walking free while awaiting trial? Then, just as quickly, reality struck. The judge denied the request. In fact, the bond was increased to $2 million. It was a moment of relief, but also a reminder of how fragile justice can be. Would the courts handle this the way they should? Would they give Zevaya the justice she deserved? Or would another loophole, another technicality, allow a child killer to escape true punishment? Months passed. The trial loomed closer. But every time Deontray Flanagan entered a courtroom, he made one thing clear. He wasn't sorry. In fact, he seemed angrier than ever. During one court session in front of news cameras, Flanagan snapped. A journalist in the room, a photographer trying to capture the moment, became his target. Without warning, he lunged. He tried to attack the photographer, arms swinging, eyes burning with rage. Chaos erupted. Deputies rushed in. The courtroom erupted in gasps. He was tackled, restrained, forced back into his seat. Even with chains on his wrists, even with officers surrounding him, Flanagan fought like a man who still thought he had power. But that moment, that single violent outburst, sealed his fate. It showed the world who he truly was. And it reminded the jury that this was no ordinary defendant. This was a man capable of anything. Would they let him walk free? Or would they end this nightmare once and for all? The trial was over. The evidence had been presented. The jury had seen the FaceTime call, heard the pleas of a mother, and watched the pursuit footage. And when the time came for their decision, there was no hesitation. The verdict? Guilty. Of capital murder, of taking the life of an innocent child, of showing no mercy. And so the judge delivered the final blow. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. No appeals that could set him free. No deals that could shorten his time. Only a cell. Only a lifetime of isolation surrounded by the same kind of criminals he once thought he could outrun. Justice had been served. But was it enough? A final question for you. The legal system did its job. The trial was swift. The sentence was harsh. But was it truly enough? Did Flanagan deserve something worse? Could this tragedy have been prevented if law enforcement had acted sooner? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Zevaya Flanagan's story is heartbreaking, but it is not just a story. It is a warning. A warning about the real dangers of domestic violence. A warning about the consequences of ignoring threats, and a warning that this could happen again, unless we learn from it. Because Zevaya is not the first child to lose her life this way. And if things don't change, she won't be the last. Most cases of domestic violence and child abuse don't start with physical attacks. They start with smaller signs, signs that are too often ignored. Here are some of the most common red flags to watch for. Uncontrollable jealousy or possessiveness. A partner who isolates their significant other, demands control over their phone, or constantly accuses them of cheating. Sudden mood swings or extreme anger. Unpredictable behavior, outbursts or rage over small things. Threats of violence. Statements like, "If I can't have you, no one can." Or "You'll regret leaving me." Harming or threatening to harm children or pets, using loved ones as a way to manipulate or punish their partner. History of violence. Prior arrests for assault, restraining orders, or reports of past abuse. Flanagan's history had all of these signs. Kirsten Watson saw them. She reported them, and still, no one acted. If authorities had stepped in when she first reported his threats, Zevaya might still be alive today. If you see these warning signs in someone you know, don't wait. Say something. Take action, because ignoring red flags can have deadly consequences. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, there are places that can help. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE 7233. Website, www.thehotline.org. Childhelp National Child Abuse Hotline, 1-800-4-A-CHILD, 1-800-422-453. Website, .childhelp.org. Local women's shelters and crisis centers. Many cities have safe shelters for victims trying to escape. You can call 211 or check local listings to find help in your area. Remember, leaving an abusive situation can be dangerous. If you are in immediate danger, call 911. If you feel trapped in a situation like this, you are not alone. You deserve safety. You deserve to be believed. And there are people who want to help you. If you've ever experienced domestic violence or know someone who has, share your story in the comments. Your words could save someone's life.